All right, so today I want to talk about, or I want to come from the book of Job, and we'll keep this one a little brief. We'll just focus on chapter one here. And so I want to title this "Nothing New Under the Sun." So Job chapter one, and we'll go to verse six. Verse six says, "One day the members of the heavenly court came to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser Satan came with them. Where have you come from?" the Lord asked Satan. Satan answered the Lord, "I have been patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going on." Then the Lord asked Satan, "Have you noticed my servant Job? He is the finest man in all the earth. He is blameless, a man of complete integrity. He fears God and stays away from evil." Satan replied to the Lord, "Yes, but Job has good reason to fear God. You have always put a wall of protection around him and his home and his property. You have made him prosper in everything he does. Look how rich he is. But reach out and take away everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." "All right, you may test him," the Lord said to Satan. "Do whatever you want with everything he possesses, but don't harm him physically." So Satan left the Lord's presence. One day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting at the oldest brother's house, a messenger arrived at Job's home with this news: "Your oxen were plowing with the donkeys feeding beside them. When the Sabins raided us, they stole all the animals and killed all the farmhands. I am the only one who escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger arrived with this news: "The fire of God has fallen from heaven and burned up your sheep and all the shepherds. I am the only one who escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, a third messenger arrived with this news: Three bands of Chaldean raiders have stolen your camels and killed your servants. I am the only one who escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger arrived with this news: "Your sons and daughters were feasting in their oldest brother's home. Suddenly, a powerful wind swept in from the wilderness and hit the house on all sides. The house collapsed and all your children are dead. I am the only one who escaped to tell you." Verse 20 says, Job stood up and tore his robe in grief. Then he shaved his head and fell to the ground to worship. He said, I came naked from my mother's womb, and I will be naked when I leave. The Lord gave me what I had, and the Lord has taken it away. Praise the name of the Lord. In all of this, Job did not sin by blaming God. I want us to, like I said at the beginning, I want us to understand the role. So let's go back to 6 and 7. And it says, one day the members of the heavenly court came to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser, Satan, came with them. Where have you come from? The Lord asked Satan. Satan answered the Lord, I have been patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going on. First off, Satan came back to heaven, and it wasn't to repent, it wasn't to build anything or bless anyone. Satan came, and his role is the accuser. And we first need to understand that Satan had got kicked out of heaven along with angels he recruited to be on his side, and they were sent to hell. And so back in the day, they used to say, misery loves company. It says Satan was patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going on, looking for new recruits. He was scanning, he watched, and he searched for weaknesses within people. He's not creative, he's investigative. He doesn't plant purpose, he hunts problems. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8 says, be ye sober-minded, stay alert, because our enemy, the devil, is like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Key word there is like a roaring lion. He's not something big. See, what we just read here was he gave a suggestion. He understood that God had a covering and protected Job, and he has to ask for permission. And that's what it says here. So I want us to understand that none of these attacks or nothing that you go through is random. It's all strategic. Again, there's nothing new under the sun. So the devil is patrolling the earth looking for people with unhealed wounds and old habits, people in lonely seasons that go through life and say, woe is me, and stay in a victim mindset or mentality. Even moments of exhaustion when you feel like you can't keep going, the devil is searching for people who are complaining in their specific situation so that he can have another recruit. Like I said, misery loves company. And so he does these things not because he's powerful, but because he's predictable. Like I said, it's the same old tactics. That's his playbook. And so let's go back and let's see what it says. So after God was bragging on Job and talking about how he is, like the finest man of the earth, his faith is unparalleled to any. Satan replied to the Lord, yes, but Job has good reason to fear God. You have always put a wall of protection around him and his home and his property. When we kept reading this story about all the messengers, even while the next messenger was speaking, or the old messenger was speaking, the next one came up with some new news, and while he was speaking, the next one came with more bad news. Sometimes it's like that in life. Sometimes we go through stuff and we say, is it not enough? Or what's next? Like what could possibly go wrong now? And that's exactly what Job was going through. But in that moment, Job couldn't see the covering that God had placed on his life, but the enemy could. The enemy recognized that Job was protected before Job knew that he was protected. And we have to understand that if God has placed a covering over Job, he's done it for us. Everything in this Bible, basic instructions before leaving earth, everything in here has been given to you. We're already equipped to be the victors of any situation that we come against because it's in his word. And we have to understand that. And the more that we read, the more you'll get that understanding. So again, the enemy could see the covering that Job couldn't. Before Job ever knew he was protected, hell had already knew. Hell knew that that's one that we can't really mess with because God got a covering over him. And so I want us to go back and again, it says, verse 11, but reach out and take away everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. Same playbook. Nothing new under the sun. So Satan gave the suggestion that Listen, if you attack his possessions, if you attack his family, chapter 2 goes into his health. If you attack his health, then he'll curse your name and blame you for everything that's going on instead of praising you for what's going on. And we read that was the exact opposite of what happened. And what the devil tried to do was he tried to make faith look transactional. He tried to say that if the only reason that that Job is praising you is because you're blessing him. And for a lot of us, we don't start to really lean in on our faith until we go through trouble seasons. But see, for Job had the blessings and was still going to God. For some of us, we'll go through a trouble season, lean on God and show him our faith, and then when he pulls us from it and blesses us, then we forget. And that's why a lot of us have to continually go through trouble seasons, is because God knows that if he gives it to you now, you'll leave him and forget about everything. So what the devil tried to do in that moment was say that if I can make life hurt enough, then maybe he'll stop trusting God. And so sometimes we're in situations where people where the enemy feels as if he has authority to punish you. And that's not the case. We read in the Bible, he gave a suggestion: if you take it away from him, he'll surely curse you to your face. And so we have to understand that Satan's tactics are old, but God's faithfulness is eternal. Satan is still accusing. He's still watching, and he's still suggesting tests. But we need to give God a reason to brag on us. See, when Satan was coming to God, the first thing God said was, well, if you can't find anybody, what about Job? You can put Job to the test, because God knew his faith. God knew how strong Job's faith was. And so we need to understand that Satan still needs permission. And he can't touch what God doesn't allow. The enemy may be watching your life, but he still can't write your story. And that's where I want to leave us. That's where I want to leave today. That's where I want to leave today. Understand that the enemy may be watching your life, but he can't write your story. Only God has that power to write your story. And when we trust and believe in God and his word and the promises that he's made to us, that fills you with joy and peace. And Satan knows this. Hell knows this. And then they say, well, we can't touch him. And that's where we want to be. That's where we want to be as believers. We want to be in that understanding that whenever we come up against problems and troubles, we need to first recognize that there's nothing new under the sun, and that the devil can't write your story, only God can.